live with Tao. Union of polar opposites is bliss. Union of polar opposites is bliss. Polar opposites create magnetic force, and with that magnetic force, a magnetic field is created. It creates an orbit, and remaining within that is bliss. That is why man and woman are attracted towards one another. That is why when man and women meet, there is happiness, there is bliss. Because when polar opposites meet together, they negate one another. But when I am talking about meeting, I am talking about a deeper meeting. A meeting, a meditative meeting, a meeting which is totally aware, in which both poles are aware of each other. They negate one another. They negate each other because they are opposites. And remember, when the opposites pole negate one another, there is illumination, there is light. They negate each other not for a single moment. When man and women really meet, and that meeting is not just bodily, but total meeting, when their beings meet in love, for a single moment, both disappear. Then there is neither man nor woman. That is, there is union, there is bliss, there is what you can call, whatever name you want to give, there is bliss. The same can happen within also, because deep analysis shows that within you there is a polarity. Now, modern deep psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic approach have revealed that there is conscious mind and unconscious mind. Both are polar opposites within you. If you are a man, then conscious mind is masculine and the unconscious mind is feminine. If you are a female, then your conscious mind is feminine and unconscious mind is feminine. So both, if you are a woman, then your conscious mind remains feminine and the unconscious mind becomes masculine. You can say that there are the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. There is, you are the confluence of the union of ovum and sperm. Part of you comes from the masculine energy, that is father. Ovum comes from the feminine source. Sperm comes from the masculine source. The unconscious is opposite of conscious. In deep meditation, there comes a deep orgasm when the polar opposites meet together. There is, in the language that you understand, if I have to say that when polar opposites meet within, there is an inner orgasm, there is an intercourse, a love between your conscious and unconscious minds. There is a union, they dissolve into one another, they merge into one another, they become one, and you become one. You attain to the highest bliss possible. And the highest possible state of bliss out of meditation is samadhi or enlightenment. So the two polar opposites, masculine and feminine, are within you. Your conscious mind is one, masculine in man, and unconscious mind is feminine. So if you are a male, then when the conscious and unconscious merge into one another, there is a union, there is an orgasmic interaction. This is what happens in a state of meditation. In meditation, it is, do not consider it a concentration or something. It is an interactive way. It is the union of the polar opposites, conscious and unconscious. So when the conscious and unconscious are merging into one another, this you can call it orgasmic relationship, or in your language, the intercourse. When they become one, you attain to the highest bliss possible. And when it comes out of meditation, then you can call it samadhi or enlightenment. So man and women can meet in two ways. You can meet a woman outside you. Then this meeting can be only momentary, very momentary. You can meet the man outside. Again, this meeting will be momentary. For a single second, the peak comes that you know as orgasm, and then things start falling away. There is another meeting of men and women that happens within you. Through this outer meaning, through this outer meeting, through this outer union, if the inner union does not happen simultaneously, then the ultimate does not happen. So through the outer union between man and woman, because you are the body, you have not attained or tasted your innerness, so you have to follow this route of the outer union between man and woman. The polar opposites are meeting. For a moment, you attain to oneness. Time disappears. Ego vanishes. And when it deepens, instead of remaining on the surface, it becomes an act of meditation. In that, along with the outer union of man and woman, there is an inner union of the both partners, inner union between man and woman, the unconscious and conscious. Along with the outer union, there comes an inner union between conscious and unconscious mind. You can attain to this inner union before you enter into the outer union, or through the outer union you can reach to the inner union. There is another meeting of the man and woman that happens within you. Your unconscious and conscious meet. When this happiness, this when this happens, this meeting can be eternal. After that, you don't seek the outer union. And this state, when the inner conscious and unconscious merge into one another, that state is known as enlightenment in the ultimate state. There is an example, there is an incident when Buddha attained to this state. Mara, or the ego, came along with his daughters to convince Gautam Buddha, but he remained unmoved. So this happens. When this happens, this meeting can be eternal. Sometimes sexual pleasure also gives the glimpse of spiritual bliss, but this is momentary. And when the real meeting happens within, then it becomes samadhi, then it becomes a spiritual phenomenon, and after that, the outer dimension becomes irrelevant for you. But you have to start from your conscious mind. So if your conscious mind is feminine, surrender will be helpful. And remember, being a woman is not necessarily synonymous with having a feminine mind. That creates the difficulty. Otherwise, everything would be very easy. Then woman would follow one path of surrender and man would follow the path of will. But it is not so easy. There are women who have a masculine mind and there are men who have a feminine mind. Their approaches towards life is there are women whose approach towards life is aggressive, and this is growing day by day. There are men whose approach to life is feminine. The women's liberation movement will create more and more masculine women. They will be more and more aggressive, and this is what you are seeing around. And the path of surrender will not be for them. They will have to follow the path of will. That's why it is difficult. You have to know what is your basic nature, a feminine nature. But although your nature resultant remains masculine or feminine, but at times even man becomes feminine and women becomes masculine. So all roles alternately change as well. So you have to decide about yourself and don't think in terms of any valuation. Do not think that you are a man. How can you have a feminine mind? You can have, and nothing is wrong in it, a man having a feminine mind. It is beautiful. Buddha has a feminine mind. And do not think that you are a woman, so how can you have a feminine mind? Nothing is wrong in it. It is again beautiful. Be authentic towards your own mind. Try to understand what type of mind you have. Then follow the path that is for you. Do not try to create any synthesis, otherwise you will run into the problems. Do not ask how are you going to reconcile these two. I am not going to tell you how to reconcile it. Reconciliation is not possible. And I am not for any statement which is non-contradictory. These will sound childish and stupid. Life is contradictory, and that is why life is alive, because it is contradiction. Death is the only thing which is consistent and non-contradictory. Life lives through the opposition, through encountering the opposite poles. How does happen? Everything happens in life that way. You are walking. The left foot and the right foot, they are polar opposites. When they move in harmony with one another, not reconciliation, they move in harmony with one another. One foot moves forward, then the other foot moves forward, and you take a step. And when you take a certain number of steps, that you cover a distance. This life lives through oppositions, through encountering the opposite poles. And this opposition, this challenge creates the energy. When the opposite poles in the battery, they interact with one another. There is no synthesis, they are interacting with one another. And in that, they charge one another. And outcome of that is energy. And that activates your vehicle. So life's vehicle is energized with the union of the polar opposites, the conscious and unconscious mind, the left and the right foot, the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, the left hand and the right hand. When they work in harmony with one another, that creates the energy which is necessary to propel your life. It releases energy and life moves through it. This is what is said as dialectic movements, thesis and antithesis, and then thesis again becomes, then synthesis again becomes a thesis and creates its own antithesis. So thesis and antithesis. And when these two merge into one another, there comes a synthesis. Synthesis again becomes a thesis and creates its own antithesis, and this process goes on. So when the conscious and unconscious merge into one another, it creates a synthesis. This synthesis creates another. If you are a masculine man, then it will create a masculine energy, and that will create its own feminine energy, and this process goes on. So life is not monotonous, it is not logical, it is dialectical. You move one foot forward, you can call it a thesis. Then the other foot moves forward. So if you do not take the first left foot forward, the right foot will not move. So thesis and antithesis goes together in harmony with one another. You move the left foot, then the right foot naturally follows that. There comes a synthesis between the two. You take a one step. Then the movement of the right foot will create another thesis, and it will allow the left foot to take another step. And the left foot will activate the right foot to take another step. And this is dialectical, and your walking continues. You continue to move in life. So this is what you have seen, how the walking takes place. Left foot moves forward, activates the movement in the right foot. The movement of the right foot activates the left foot again to take another step. If you just remain stationary, then there is no point. In the same way, the opposite poles, the masculine and the feminine poles in you, they create thesis, antithesis, and out of the union of the thesis and antithesis, synthesis comes in. Just as in walking, left foot thesis, right foot antithesis, reaction. And out of that, when two neutralize one another, there comes synthesis. That synthesis is one step. You must understand the difference between logical and dialectical. The question is, because you think life is logical, so you ask how you will reconcile, because logic always reconciles. Logic cannot tolerate the contradiction. But life cannot move without dialectics, without contradictions. Logic means you negate one for the other. In the battery, that is why through logic one never reaches anywhere in life. With logic. If you say the right pole in the battery is more important than the left foot, nothing will happen. The negative pole, the process of thesis and antithesis will not be there. You will be logical. But nothing will happen. And this is where the people who follow the path of logic, they remain far away from reality. Life is not logical, it is dialectical. Science is logical. You must understand the difference between logical and dialectical. The question is, because you think life is logical, life is logic, so you ask to create a reconciliation, and through that reconciliation, you want to move forward in life. Logic cannot tolerate any kind of contradiction. Heat and cold, but you have to go beyond that. Krishna says, Sitoshna Samadukha. One who is beyond heat and cold, all contradictions. Then there is no logic, there is dialectics. Logic cannot tolerate contradictions. Logic has to somehow explain that it is not contradictory. And if it is contradictory, then both cannot be true. How can it be true when there is polar opposites? Logic cannot tolerate the contradiction. Logic has somehow to explain that it is not contradictory, and if it is contradictory, then both cannot be true. If I say glass is half empty and glass is half full, both are true, but both cannot exist together. You have to go beyond the two. It is neither half full nor it is correct to say that it is half full. But the logic will only use one part, half full or half empty. Logic tries to find non-contradictions everywhere, and that is not possible. Science is logical, that is why science is not totally true to life. Life is contradictory, illogical, it works through the opposites. Science, if you study, if you follow the rules of science, walking may not be possible. Life works through opposites. It is not afraid of opposites, instead it uses opposites to continue. The battery in your car uses the opposites to create a synthesis to neutralize one another. When they neutralize one another, there is synthesis, and in that synthesis there is energy generated, and that energy propels your car to move forward. This is a way, a systematic way of explaining. It works through opposites. Bulb, you need the bulb, you need the light. But how the light works? There is electric current, there is something put in that. The bulb has positive and negative poles. So the negative, when you put the bulb in the socket, positive current is flowing, there is a negative pole right there, and when these two contradictory poles, positive and negative, neutralize one another, there is synthesis, and out of that synthesis there comes illumination, and you need that for life to carry on the work. Everywhere this principle of dialectics work. I am speaking, this is live streaming, the microphone and all the other sound systems work on the principle of dialectics. So life is not afraid of opposites, it uses the opposites. The opposites are only apparently opposites, deep down they work together. You look at it, deep down they work together. It is dialectics, not logical. It is a dialogue. What dialectic means? A dialogue between opposites, a continuous dialogue. If you look at it really, the battery, there is a continuous dialogue between the positive pole and negative pole. If you go deeper into it meditatively, there is a constant dialogue. The energy that is flowing, it is a constant dialogue, and because of that, an energy field is created. Between the two poles of the magnet, the north and the south pole, there is a continuous dialogue which you cannot see, that the two are having a dialogue among themselves, and this dialogue is between the opposites. So too continuously there happens a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious mind, and through that life is propelled. They sometimes, and when they, through this inner dialogue, a magnetic field is created. Out of that magnetic field there comes a union. Synthesis. Think for a moment. If there is no contradiction, life will be dead. Because from where will come the challenge? It is the positive that creates a challenge. If those who have got their one foot amputed, they cannot walk in the normal way. And then in order to create the normal way, they have to use crutches as the opposite pole. From where will come the attraction, and from where will come the energy to be released? It will be monotonous, dead. Life is possible only because of the dialectics, because of the opposites. Men and women are two basic oppositions. And then there comes a challenge. Challenge creates the phenomena of love. Love is the phenomena of the interaction between the opposites. And the whole life moves through love, through this. Love is the synthesis. When the opposites challenge one another, love comes as the outcome. If your lover and you become so totally one that there is no gap at all, you both will be not alive. You will not be able to exist then. Then both will disappear from this dialectic process. Enough for now. Let us continue it to conclude in tomorrow's session. Until then, take care.